All right, Coach, go ahead and talk about this week's game at Fresno State.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to get back playing again. Go play a good football team in Fresno State, coming off a huge win that they had against Boise, and dominated the game, held Boise to 190 some yards. Did that. And the big thing that's going to be critical this week, number one, we got to go play on a road at a place that Wyoming hasn't won since 2014. So that's one piece of it. Second piece of it that you find real interesting is that in their 3 conference wins, their turnover margin is +9, and in their 2 conference losses, their turnover margin is -4. So right there in and of itself. And that was one of the things that we talked with our team about this past week, that for this final stretch of games, and it starts, one game at a time, the whole deal. But right now we're -3 on the season, and that can't be. And I haven't looked, nationally what it is in terms of where we, after another weekend of games and we didn't play. But last week we were 33rd in the country in turnovers forced defensively. So this isn't, to be -3 has been a problem, and we have 12 of them in Mountain West games. And so, I think if you single out one thing right away, to start this game, is the fact that we got to win turnover margin. We got to be able to do that. We got to take care of the ball. We got to make great decisions with the ball, and all that's going to be important for us to get started. So.
Javon Bonite said last week that he wants to be the offensive coordinator here. Have you made that decision yet, or is this kind of an audition for him down the stretch?
No, I haven't made the decision yet. I think, look, I like where we're at, and I think the open date helped us in a lot of ways offensively. And I think that, look, there's a lot of ways to this, right? There's utilization of personnel, creativity that we've got to do. I go back to 2023 as a defensive coordinator here. Craig Bowl was very much a 4-man front, this is the way it'll be type of person. And we're getting ready to play Texas Tech, and we've got, that whole offseason, and they're drumming everybody from the year before. And the only people that were kind of hanging them up were people that were doing certain things 3-man front-wise. And, we spent a lot of time, had a lot of conversations about it. It's like, I think if we played the way that we had traditionally played and always played, that we weren't going to have a great deal of success. And he finally, was like, yeah, you're going to need to do what you got to do and open that up. And that's what I want offensively too. I don't like, and so that we've got some good players in certain situations. We got to use them. And we can't be, naive to the fact that, like, in some situations we're not going to be, the talent is going to be even, or we might even be a little bit on the underside of some of it. So we're going to have to do some things. We can't just line up like we've got better guys and just rely on that. And so he's been very good. I've been pleased with where we're at offensively with him right now. I've been, spent a lot of time the last couple days, especially with them, in terms of their game planning and all that. I think that whole staff is working well together, which is always a big key to it, because when you take someone and make them the coordinator through the back part of a season, you could also have a room full of people that would sit there and go, well, okay, I'm not going to, and that's not the way that is either. So I think that right now, I'm excited to kind of see us, get started again and have the open date and be able to do certain things.
Coach Bull mentioned wanting to see the defense take the next step to dominance, and I'm curious maybe what 1 or 2 areas you feel like might be the easiest route for you to get to that level.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, we got to dominate the run game. I think that's one of the things there that when you look at it, we've played some pretty good teams running the ball this year with Utah and Air Force and that type of thing. But we can be more dominant in the run game, and I think that's some things up front that we can continue to improve at and do. I think that's first and foremost. And that'll be a big challenge for us this week because when you look at Fresno offensively, their running backs are the key to their offense. And being able to play well in that space will be critical. So, when you say, okay, what's the next step, defensive dominance? Number one will be dominate the run game. We've got to do that. And that's something that's a must for us in this program now and going forward. The second thing is I think, I said, okay, we've created some turnovers and the whole deal. We need to have that pop these next game. This needs to be where we're getting 3 in these type of games. And a couple of them, one of the things that's happened this year, of turnovers and takeaways that we've had, not many of them have set up our offense on short fields. And so I think that's one of the things when you look at team success is all of a sudden we need to get against CSU, Desmond Hearns gets an interception early in the game and we get the ball at the 40-yard line. Well, now you set yourself up for a touchdown. It's nice to get a couple of them when you're backed up in your own end zone or some things like that. But I think that's something that within a team concept that would help our offense out if all of a sudden we get an interception return to the 10-yard line or something like that we need to get in that space too.
Jay, going back to the coaching staff, we don't know a whole lot about it first year of the program. I'm curious your thoughts on Bryce Missy working with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, Bryce is a smart guy. He's he was an offensive coordinator before coming here, and and so he's worked with that position. Really sharp. I know the players have, they've enjoyed his coaching so far, and to do that, I've sat in on a couple of his meetings. And he's pretty clear in how he's teaching it, what he wants the quarterback to do, and how the quarterback has to function with the ball. And so, I'm in a good spot with that right now. As this isn't, it'd be different in making that type of change if the person that you're putting, kind of in charge of that room hadn't coached that position before, or you're just a placeholder of something. Bryce is a pretty good coach.
You said Landon Sims might not even be ready for 2026.
He gets surgery tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think once we kind of clear the surgery tomorrow, then we'll get a little bit more feedback. So I didn't mean to interrupt your question.
That's 3 major knee injuries now, and I believe all in the same knee. Is there a chance he just isn't going to play ever again?
Not when Landon's spirit. No, that's not going to be an option. I think you'd pretty much have to drag him out in that regard. But I think that we've got to be really mindful as our staff too, and we're in November right now. If you tell me it's a 9-month recovery, well, that's still putting us into August of next year. And, that's a long-term type of thing. And so, there could be if you say it's a 12-month recovery, then you completely miss the season. And so there's going to be some things that we have to look at within a roster management standpoint too, because right now that room was going to be at 5 quarterbacks next year with Landon Sims. Right now it's 5 with an injured Landon Sims. So that's probably going to necessitate the fact that we're going to need to add someone else to that room too. And I don't want to add anybody that has more than 2 years left. Okay, so it'd be, we got to look in certain spaces there because, you hear a lot of things anymore when a guy comes in and out of a surgery. And Jake Wilson was supposed to be playing by the 3rd game of the year, and he had an infection and had all this other stuff. And next thing you know, he's missing the season. So, we'll kind of work for there with Landon. But I know his spirit is he wants to play and everything that way. And we're going to, fight for him to be able to do that.
Bo Knight talks about wanting to get J. Mike more involved.
Yep.
How important is that for him, J. Mike, going into these last 3 games of his regular season?
Yeah, this is a big thing for him. First of all, he's in the healthiest space that he's been in since probably August. And, I think that, the CSU game, he was not really involved in the game plan at all. and lightly a little bit against San Diego State. Part of it had been leading up to the CSU game, you didn't know his availability till middle to latter part of that week. And it's really hard to game plan a lot of things for a particular player if you don't know if that player is going to be playing, because you only got so much time on a field and you only got so many plays that you can execute and get proficient at. And to do that, and if a guy isn't going to be available, then you take a whole package of what you're maybe doing and you throw it out, right? And so so now that we know that we're in that space, had a bye week, the whole deal, I mean, that is going to be important for us to involve him a heavy amount.
Coach, obviously you have still a lot to play for in these final weeks of the season. I'm curious to know what was maybe the biggest message or focus of this bye week, besides maybe that turnover margin you talked about as you kind of head into the final stretch here.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's three things. I think I'll flip this over because I had a couple things here. There's three big things, though, that offensively, is a focus. Now, look, when you say, okay, what's the focus? The focus is that we got one game to play this week. That's the focus. We're not talking about anything beyond this Saturday, but we talk about things that got us to where we are right now and where we could be a lot better, right? And number one was the turnover margin and the fact that we're -3, and that's a big piece of it. Red zone offense is another one. Our touchdown percentage is 57% in the red zone right now, and that's not good enough, okay? If you look at the flip side of it, we've got a pretty good red zone defense, and that touchdown percentage is 50%. So we're, you take a look at a couple of teams, like Air Force is sitting right around 75%. I think UNLV's like 67, 68%. They're 10% higher than us. Okay, so red zone touchdown percentage is another one there. And I think short yardage offenses. But, so those three things in and of itself, extend drives, score points, and keep the opponent off the field and keep the opponent out of your own territory. That's the turnover margin. It starts that. And then red zone efficiency and scoring touchdowns is a big piece of it. So, those three areas there, like I said, I led off this as, a big thing for this game this week. Like I said, they're +9 in Mountain West wins, and they're -4 in Mountain West losses. So when you look at one big statistic right off the bat, that's what it's going to start with.
Coach, with a month left, I'm curious if you expect to see some of these freshmen like Sam Harris, Dion DeBlanc, maybe make that final push to having a breakout kind of season. And then you mentioned Keelan Washam as a guy you might dust off. Has that changed at all?
Keelan's hasn't changed yet, okay, to where we're going to completely use that one. I think for a number of our freshmen and younger players, it's kind of like hey, you're a freshman, but now it's time to play like a sophomore. You've played for a lot of the season. It's time for our sophomores to play like juniors. Caden Anderson, for example. Caden Anderson's a redshirt sophomore quarterback. It's time for you to play like a junior now. And to do that. And so, there's an expectation that we take another step in these next few games to, not only improve our performance, but also eliminate mistakes, okay? And so that's a big piece to it. But no, I think with Dion, I think with Sam, Tyson Dean, for certain, Parker Moore. Parker will play this week again. Caden Kimball-Turner is going to be one that's going to play a little bit for us at some point, and those types of things. We got a number of freshmen. Keelan could still be a part of that this week, probably not, but, still coming, yes. And we scrimmaged those guys last week and let those guys go live, and that was kind of fun to see. And there was it was a pretty good session, so I was pretty happy with that.
Sticking with freshmen, I'm curious where Mason Group is at speed-wise, and if it would be an option to kind of implement him in similar packages that you had for Landon Sims, not at the redshirt.
No, I think with Mason right now, this will be a week that determines a lot of things in terms of where he's at. First of all, we all in the program have a lot of confidence in Mason. There's no question about it. He's very talented and he's a very good player. And I think, going into this week, I thought he had a good week last week. And I think this is a big week to, show that you can execute the offense, show that you can, if something happened to Caden Anderson, that this is your show for a period of time. As far as the specific package of stuff, I think right now, when you're talking about somebody that was a junior in college versus somebody that's a true freshman in college, I don't know that that's the direction that we're particularly leaning in or anything like that right now. So.
Yeah, you picked up Dances Miller really late in the process last year, and I know you talked to me before about how expensive the corner market is, and also that you liked his performance against North Dakota State, which is a big reason he's here. But how big of a steal has that guy been in your guys' opinion?
Yeah, Dances has been great. We didn't. I mean, look, Dances has been in better than the guy that we lost. Okay, and so normally when you get to a spring portal like that craziness was, it's hard to find equal value on certain things. Dances has been really, really good. He will be back this week. He gets, he's full practice today, everything that way, and so that's been a big. He's been a good player for us this year. I love his demeanor, how he works. He just kind of shuts up and does his business. Has played very well for us through the course of the year, and that room has been a much improved unit over last year, which I think is a big piece. And Marquis Grant played pretty well against San Diego State. So you got him, you got Tyrese Boss, Dances, Tyson Dean. That the room's very much improved. Dances has been a big find. That spring portal actually was, I was really skeptical about how we were going to do. And you take him, you take Chisholm, all right. Let's see here. Those two, Max White was in that. He's done some solid things. DeMaje was in that. Enoch. So we've gotten some value out of that group right there, and we're hopeful, but I think we've exceeded what maybe our expectation was when you get into like that type of spring portal. I'm glad it's at one portal in that going forward, but I thought we did all right with that.
Going back to the red zone and short yardage numbers, is it healthy and more involved J. Mike kind of key to improving those numbers?
Sure. I mean, that's a big piece of it because he's your top tight end, and in that. So that certainly is somebody that, absolutely. That's a big benefit in the red zone, especially. And so all that. So that, look, it's a real thing when you miss a guy that's one of your better players for 4+ games or whatever he was gone. That's a real thing. And so we're excited that he's kind of full speed and in a really good spot right now. So.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you have availability yet for Evan Eller, Jaden Williams, and Anish for this week.
Evan Eller, he'll be fine. Jaden Williams has been reinstated. He's done the things that was required of him, and so he'll be ready to play. And Anish, we will see. I think that probably truthfully, Anish might be a week out. But Dances Miller cleared. Evan Eller will be fine. And we're in a really healthy spot, for the most part for this time of year, knock on wood. And so I think that the expectation is with a week that we kept, we kind of toned back on some things a week, this past week to let, those guys feel even better. And right now, I mean, when you talk to them, like we're in a pretty good spot health-wise.
How has Gage Brooks' progression gone, and would you be comfortable if he had to come in at any point?
Yeah, I mean, Gage has progressed really well. I think the thing that was maybe a concern with him a year ago would have been just command, and like, okay, if you're in charge, can you get us in the right play? Can you check something? Can you get it communicated? Can you do those things? He's come a long way on that part of it, to where he knows the offense inside now. He knows where the ball needs to go. He knows where it needs to go with direction and those types of things. Yeah, I think that we would be. I don't want that to have to happen necessarily in that regard, but I think that it wouldn't be like something where we would alter everything that we do because Gage Brook had to come in or anything like that.
Is he, like we talked about it last week, but the pecking order, is there a pecking order yet?
There's probably a pecking order of some things, but this week will kind of determine it. And I think probably the way that it's listed on the depth chart, I think there's an or to it. I think that's kind of where we'll leave it at right now and go from there.
Coach, you talked early in the season about Ethan Stuhlsatz being behind Evan Eller with his communication. Has he
Been much
closed
better.
that gap? Yeah.
Been much better. Ethan Stuhlsatz played really well the last couple of weeks, and you start to see him show up more and more. This is a 6'4" guy can run, and so I'm really excited about where he's at. I'm really excited about the fact that a year from now, like he should be in a much more comfortable role of running the show that way. He's got a chance to be a really good player here in the time he's here through the rest of this year and the time through next year. I mean, he's got a chance to be really, really good. And he's a guy. He's 6'4". He can run, and so I'm pretty happy with his last couple games have been his best of the season, and it's been good to see.